Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, don't make us angry, faithful spoilerites. You wouldn't like us when we're angry. It's time to embrace the monster within as we look at the Immortal Hulk, study xenomorphs for Steven, and peer into the images of tomorrow with the local man. Autumn approaches and the witch of November comes stealing, so we sing through the rooms of our ice water mansions, and all that remains is the faces and the names of the spoilerites, true and all otter. The legend lives on, and the internet's on down with the podcast they call Major Spoilers, and it's on the air.
I think you meant to say the podcast they call Major Spoilers.
Oh, the ship went straight down and they began to drown.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome, everyone, to issue 1098 of the Major Spoilers podcast. We will be talking about Volume 1 of The Immortal Hulk from Al Ewing and Joe Bennett. That came out, I believe, and started in, 2016 or something like that. Yeah, somewhere around there. We'll be talking about that later in the show. But first, let's do some reviews. I want to know about video games. Rodrigo, what's going on in the world of the video games? Should we still be spending $70 for video games? Or should those AAA companies really think about $45 is the sweet spot?
I think we are well within the $70 era for AAA releases.
Oh, boo.
Now, it used to be that basically everything was $60, regardless of where it came from. Now, some lighter indie games are $40, $45. So there's some leeway depending on what you want to buy. But the game I'm talking about was a full-on $70. It's called a Metaphor Refantazio. There's not going to be a test. I don't expect anybody to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
It's put out by Atlas and Sega. And and if you are or if you've been paying attention to sort of this release, basically this game is the Persona team from the Persona games being like, let's do a fantasy game instead of like a modern sort of urban fantasy game, which Persona is, right? So like let's do a full-on fantasy game. So if you are familiar with the Persona games, there's a lot here that you'll be familiar with. For example, everything happens on a calendar, like things take time. You know, when you play like Fallout or an Elder Scrolls game or whatever, and you're like, oh, I have to go, or like The Witcher probably, like I have to go rescue my child.
Mm-hmm.
And then you run into like 10 things on the way.
Mm-hmm.
In this game, each one of those things takes time. So you have to decide, and you can still do things on the way to other places. But yeah, everything takes time. So you have to decide, do I do this or do I do something else or do I delay what I'm doing? And there are some things that can't be delayed. They're going to happen no matter what, right? So you should be there when they happen. I was talking to someone about it, and they were like, I can't believe that this is a game that's actually based around giving you FOMO. And it really is. Like, it's a way, in the same way that I think some people get a great satisfaction out of doing every last possible thing that you could do in a game, other people can draw satisfaction from making those hard choices as the game goes on and deciding on what to do. And it also gives a potentially some replay value because you can make different choices. The story is really impressive. I am just continually impressed by this game because, as some other people have also pointed out, even though it's called Metaphor, they don't leave a lot to metaphors. Like, the metaphors are very shallow in the sense that the story of this game revolves around a kingdom where there's a lot of inequality, there's a lot of outright racism, and basically, because of some magic, rather than the next king being the next person in line or somebody from a related family, the next king of the kingdom is going to basically be voted on democratically through magic.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, anybody can be king or queen, and you now have to fight to gain the approval of the people, right? Which is something that nobles and clergy and all these people had never had to do before. They just had the power, right? But now this opens up this way. So in the process, characters talk about all kinds of stuff. They talk about inequality, they talk about democracy, they talk about like slavery and like wage theft, and all kinds of stuff that is very surprising that the game is like really diving into, but they really are. And so far, it's pretty close to flawless. There's a couple of things here and there where I'm like, well, as long as we don't look at this too closely, it should be okay. I played all the way through Persona 5, and Persona 5, it doesn't really drop the ball, but it takes a very sort of soft, focused look at the social issues that it's looking at. Definitely by the end, I'm like, okay, well, what, if anything, was changed, right? So this is Schrodinger's game right now. I don't know if this game is going to deliver in sort of like the like sort of social justice promises that it's making as the plot develops, or if it's just going to super drop the ball later, or if it's just going to be like, well, actually, this is invaders from the moon show up and all that stuff is forgotten because it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Like something like that could very well happen.
So is this a game that is a multiplayer, or is this a single player and it has additional content, etc.? Or
this is a single player game right now. Okay. There's no DLC, but yeah, it's a turn-based RPG.
Okay.
So
I do like those.
Yeah. So you go in and you fight monsters in dungeons. Like that's the main gameplay, but really the like day to day, today I decide to talk to this person, today I decide to go to like cook a meal for everybody kind of thing. Like that is also basically core gameplay. The magic system is based around these things called archetypes, which are similar to personas in the Persona games, but really they're actually more similar to Final Fantasy style jobs.
Okay.
So if you've played Final Fantasy games or like Bravely Default, something where like characters can take jobs and swap jobs, that's more like what that system is like. As far as how the game looks, it's the Persona team, so the menus look fantastic, and the art direction of the world is really interesting and cool. There are like quote unquote like regular monsters, but there are also these other monsters called humans, and you will note that none of the character races are called humans. Like they'll have like a different So the humans are based on Hieronymus Bosch's.
Oh, great! So nightmare fuel.
Yeah, so they're these like guys with like there's like a guy with like a squat body and like 4 different like very naked human legs coming out.
Yeah.
And like some plants around it and stuff. So yeah, if you're familiar with that, again, very stark difference to the rest of the world, I think very much on purpose. The characters aren't wearing like big armor and stuff. In fact, the designers said that they were basing a lot of the characters' looks in like 1960s England. So the characters look very mod.
Oh, weird.
Which is, yeah, it's interesting. It's, it's like a different look for fantasy. Anyway, I'm having a great time with it. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 right here. I reserve the right to dock it if it just like completely drops the ball on the themes. But if like I'm sure some people don't like turn-based games. I'm sure some people are very turned off by the calendar system.
Yeah, that would be the one thing that I would kind of be hesitant on.
Yeah, but if you're not, if you've ever played a Persona game and you were like, I don't know if I want to pick this one up, do it. If you've played Fire Emblem Three Houses, you've already been exposed to the calendar system, so pick this up.
And you love that
I'm
game,
serious,
right?
guys.
So
Yeah, this is like people are in hushed tones talking Game of the Year. So
really,
we'll see.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And when did that come out? That just came out like in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that came out the 11th.
Okay.
So yeah,
very cool. Well, that's giving you time to play that and get the buzz going. We've got a link to that on our Amazon affiliate link if anybody wants to purchase it for themselves and find out for themselves if this is indeed the Game of the Year, as Rodrigo is talking. Okay, Matthew, last week Image Comics released some stuff.
Yeah. Some of them were comics. One of them was Local Man. Now, if you've been paying attention for the last year or so, you know that I am very hyped about Local Man. Because Local Man is a 30th anniversary Image special that harkens back to all the potential of Image Comics while admitting that it didn't get there. The potential was mostly wasted. And that has made for a really entertaining series. The main character, who sometimes goes by Local Man, but is officially known as CROSSJACK, used to be the leading member of Third Gen. And his power was that he never missed. He has since realized that never missing is actually a side effect of his real power. And his real power is the ability to perceive the truth, what's really going on. So at the end of issue 13 of Local Man, they had wrapped up the big second arc plotline and dealt with some entertaining stuff, including a character from Youngblood, who is left behind when Youngblood was removed from the Image Comics universe during the Image United crossover, I think. No, Shattered Image crossover, of 1994. In 1995, the remaining books in the Image universe did a 1 month kind of stunt event called Images of Tomorrow, where 5 books presented issue 25 out of sequence. And so the plan was issue 25 came out and you'd be like, oh my God, what happened? And then you would take however long it took, ideally 12 months for 12 issues to get to issue 25. One book made it to issue 25 and it took almost 2 years to do it. Most of the others did not make it more than 3 or 4 issues. So this is Local Man participating in the Images of Tomorrow crossover from 25 years ago by jumping forward 12 months in time. And it is hysterical. It is absolutely hysterical. It's goofy and delicious and fun. And it deals with a lot of the things that have been kind of floating around in the background of the book, including Jack finally being given government authorization to wear his costume again, and possibly even once again be a member of Third Gen, only to realize that maybe Third Gen isn't where it's at anymore. Maybe Third Gen is behind the times. And maybe these new young heroes with names like #Crusade and Click Click Bang Bang and the Living Meme, these new Zoomer superheroes might know what's actually going on. Now, here's the thing that you need to know. I cannot do this justice, and I don't want to spoil it, especially if you have been reading Local Man. But there's some stuff in here that I just kind of went, oh my God, did not see that coming yet again. This book, of course, has a flip book as part of its gimmick. So the main story, or I guess the story on the front of the flip book, is written by Tim Seeley with art by Tony Fleecs. The flip book, if you start from the back, is written by Tony Fleecs with art by Tim Seeley. And so you are basically looking at the same 2 creators, except they've kind of inverted their roles. So the flipbook story this issue is literally a game of beach volleyball, because in 1995, Image was also doing their swimsuit specials. And so it's really, really fun. It's really goofy. And then we get to the end and CROSSJACK is like, wait, where's everybody going? What's going on? We were just getting started. And also in keeping with the Image comics of the 90s, this book is going on an unidentified hiatus. So I'm heartbroken, but also incredibly entertained that not only did they honor all of the original Image books by taking their bits and pieces and making them modern, they've also honored the fact that all of those books just suddenly ended and never came back. But they're doing it in such a way that the creators are saying, hey, we're taking a break. We probably will be back. We may be back. It's entirely possible. And then we may not. And I kind of feel like that's just as entertainingly postmodern as the story of this 40-ish superhero coming to terms with, his life and figuring out that maybe when you're a 20-year-old superhero, you're just kind of an idiot. So here's the thing you need to know about Local Man number 25. It is the last issue. It does jump 12 issues forward. It does maintain the same level of what I like to call sardonic quality. And it's a good comic book. It is $4.99, so it's $1 more than usual, but it also is longer than usual. And I have to tell you, if you've been in since issue 1, first of all, congratulations, and we can be friends. This is a book you're going to want. If you haven't, I want you to know that you probably should start reading Local Man. Just start reading it somewhere else. Start maybe with issue 1 and then get here in a year or two. And then you can go, oh man, that book just sort of ended. And then you'll remember what it was like for all of us in 95 and 96 with Youngblood disappearing and the Pact disappearing and all of the books disappearing. 4 slices of meatloaf for Local Man number 25. I don't even know if they intended to be this meta, but well done. Applause for pulling off an ending like this. It's hilarious.
All right, there you go. Out this week from Marvel Comics, Alien Romulus Annual. Now, back in August, I want to say, Alien Romulus dropped in theaters. It's the latest in the Alien franchise, although the story takes place between the events of Alien and Aliens. And it has, it's kind of like a greatest hits of everything Alien that you expect, including the awful Weyland-Yutani Corporation, AI robots that are maybe following their programs a little bit too closely, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I really enjoyed the movie a lot. It came out on digital last Tuesday, and this week Marvel Comics releases a tie-in comic book. One of the few times, and I will say this is one of the few times when a comic book tie-in comes in at what I would say the perfect time, because even though Alien Romulus made over $350 million at the box office in its initial release, I think more people are talking about the movie now that it's available on digital and that people can buy it, enjoy it in their own home, because let's be honest, the last couple of Alien movies may not have been the greatest in the world. ? Insert your own biases there. And so people watching this movie and then seeing that there's a tie-in comic book really kind of goes hand in hand. Now, in the movie, there are a group of young people. I won't say teenagers because they're not really teenagers. I would say they're young adults between the ages of 18 and 25-ish. And they are trying to get off this planet. And there is a ship that has some cryo chambers that they may be able to steal off this derelict vessel and put into their own ship so they can go off to Paradise Island, wherever that planet is. Unfortunately, they find out that the derelict vessel has been taken over by aliens because, again, Weyland-Yutani, and again, what has happened is, and this all happens within the first 5 minutes of the movie, so there's not super spoilers. Ripley escaped the Nostromo and blew it up. 20 years later, Weyland-Yutani has now gone out to that space to investigate. They found an alien in the wreckage, frozen, They brought it aboard the ship Romulus and Remus. One half of it is the Remus, one half of it is the Romulus, the big space station. And they start to dissect this thing. And if there's one thing we know about aliens is you can't kill them. They're impossible to kill. And this one does thaw itself out and wreaks havoc on the ship. We piece that together through the events of the rest of the Alien Romulus movie. Alien Romulus Annual from Zach Thompson and Daniel Paquito, Paquito, with input from Fede Alvarez, who is the director of the movie, have told us the story in one comic book of what happened between the time that the Weyland-Yutani crew picked up this alien and when the alien unthawed itself and went berserk on the space station, and why the space station is derelict at the start of the events of the movie. I have, over the years, enjoyed Alien comic books. Dark Horse had the Alien franchise for years, and there are many of those stories that I liked of the Weyland-Yutani Space Marines going out and taking aliens and clearing them off of planets. It's pretty clear in both the movie and in this book that characters are aware that these alien xenomorph creatures exist, and especially the Marines who are stationed on this ship as security protocol are aware that these xenomorph things should be eradicated as opposed to being studied, and they are throwing up all the warnings saying, hey, we need to eradicate this thing now. Oh, quiet, Sergeant, you're overreacting. And she's like, one of those things took my eye. I know exactly what we're dealing with. And of course, all the craziness that ensues once the main alien gets out and starts to free all of the little, what are the spider ones called? The xenomorph babies. What are they called? The
face huggers.
Face huggers, yeah. That those things start taking over the station. While I appreciate the fact that Marvel is doing a tie-in that is perfectly timed for this release, and while I appreciate that Zach Thompson and Fede Alvarez are working together to make this story part of the in-continuity history of the Alien franchise, it's pretty clear when, in the movie, our intrepid adventurers stumble upon the remains of the alien, and one of the robots, one of the androids, Rook, is telling everybody exactly what happened on the Romulus. This book kind of fits into one of those niche places of you're answering questions that we really don't need to know about, because the story, we can fill in the blanks of what happened. This book attempts to make an interesting story out of it, and I would say that it's interesting to a point, especially if you haven't seen the movie and you want a little bit more information leading into the movie and you want a little bit more story there. I think this would be a perfect read before you watch the movie. But after the movie, I kind of felt like I got nothing new out of this. None of the characters except for one is in the movie. Everyone else is dead by the time that the movie starts. And so, I don't know, it just kind of hung there to me as a way to make something inhabit that alien universe, but also feel, I don't know, kind of blasé, because I just didn't care about these people. The art is really good. I'm sure that there are some likeness issues that they couldn't get the Rook character to be, on model for the real life actor. But it's pretty clear that you can tell who it is once they start talking. So Zach Thompson does a great job of finding the voices for all of the characters in this piece, and I did enjoy that. But overall, by the end, I kind of felt like I was served something lukewarm, like that egg hadn't fully hatched yet, and maybe was waiting for something more. I don't think that there will be any follow-up to this, because obviously everybody on the Romulus in this comic book dies. Again, spoiler alert for the first 5 minutes of the movie. So I don't think that they're going to come back and say, here's Alien Romulus Annual 2. I just don't see that happening. It's still an enjoyable read. If you're a fan of the Alien franchise, if you're a fan of Alien comics, if you're a fan of the whole Alien stuff that they've done with the crossovers and the Predator stuff that they've done at Marvel, then you probably will want to pick this up. And if you really need to know what happened on the Romulus before the events of the movie, then yeah, pick this up. it's well executed just from the medium construction storytelling process. So the art is well done. The story is well constructed. It just doesn't feel like it fits anywhere. So that's why I'm going to give it 3 slices of meatloaf for this. Still enjoyable. You can pick up this and Local Man 25 via our Amazon affiliate links there in the show notes. I had a lot of fun with the movie. Didn't have as much fun with the comic book. So there you go. Any of you guys watch the Alien Romulus?
I did.
Did you? Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot up until the end.
Yeah.
At which point I kind of liked it, but I enjoyed it a lot most of the way through.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of this, and maybe we will in the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Listen, we want to make sure that this show continues to be an independent show, and really today with like Google Notebook LM and, you know, the proliferation of quote unquote professional podcasts out there, all of the podcasts that you could potentially be listening to are going to sound the same, kind of like some machine just cranking out the exact same format, the exact same sound week after week and episode after episode. And that could get so dull and dry, especially when Serial Season 1 kind of was peak NPR type programming. Major spoilers, though, we don't believe in just cranking out the same old. We craft all of the shows in the Major Spoilers podcast network with care and finesse. We let you see the mistakes that people make. We allow the warts to show up. But we lovingly inject ourselves, almost like an alien facehugger, into each podcast so that you may enjoy it as well. You could say that the Major Spoilers podcast, as an indie creation, is like that bespoke piece of jewelry or that artesian bread that you love so much. And what's the last thing that you want to happen? You don't want your artesian bread place to close down. I think it's called a bakery. You don't want your piece of artesian art, your bespoke piece of art or jewelry or whatever, to just go away. You want to enjoy that for a long time. Yeah, you want to grow old with that artesian jewelry. And we want you to grow old with us. So here's what you can do. You can head over to patreon.com/majorspoilers, and you can keep this bespoke indie podcast network going. We can hold up our shields and fend off the slings and arrows of all the Google Notebook LMs and NPR type podcasts that are out there, and truly remain an independent voice out there for your enjoyment. Again, that site, patreon.com/majorspoilers. Couple of bucks, $5 a month, less than the cost of a loaf of artesian bread, and certainly a lot less than a piece of bespoke jewelry. Your $5 goes a long way to making this happen. This week, we're sending our gratitude and our thanks to Andrew Watts, who didn't want to just pledge $5. They updated to our gold membership, the $10 level, and they get to access up to 8 bonus shows a month at that gold member level. But that's okay. If you just say, oh, I can't afford $10, all 5 is all I can afford, don't worry. You're going to get up to 4 bonus episodes each month exclusively on the Major Spoilers Patreon page. Patreon.com/majorspoilers. What are you waiting for? We're waiting for you over at patreon.com/majorspoilers. Okay, everybody. It is time, because it is the spooky season. We've got a couple of episodes of spooky comics coming up. And I thought we would start with the Immortal Hulk Volume 1. Now, Matthew, I want you to kind of give us an overview of Immortal Hulk Volume 1. And then we can share some thoughts and reactions to this. But I will say, though, I understand that this is a finite series, 50 issues, and this is but a 10th of that. I don't feel like we get the whole story here. So please tell us what's going on.
Sure. So coming out of the second superhero civil war, Hawkeye killed the Hulk. He shot him in the head with a special arrow.
Special arrow.
Bruce Banner made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Bruce Banner made to kill him. Yeah. And this is the thing. Everybody thought that the Hulk was dead, but the Hulk actually was not dead. And at the point that they started hinting something might be up, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then in Immortal Hulk #1, we find that Bruce Banner is alive and well, once again, wandering the roads and the highways and the byways. But if he ever gets killed, which happens with startling regularity, he awakens as the Hulk that night. So this is the story of Bruce Banner coming to realize that there's something, and he calls it the Green Door, that allows gamma mutates to return from the great beyond. So you die, but you can pass through the Green Door and you can come back immortal. The problem that we run into is that his Hulk is now a new personality. We know about the old Hulk, who's kind of the childlike Hulk. And then, of course, there's Mr. Fix-It, who's a Hollywood tough guy. There was Doc Green, who was a tech genius, and the War Hulk, who was, scarred by battle and angry about the death of his family. Devil Hulk is the personality created when Bruce was a young child. And Devil Hulk pretty much hates everything. Devil Hulk, essentially, here's the thing. Devil Hulk will kill anything that hurts Bruce Banner. And since the premise of the series is every time Bruce Banner dies, the Devil Hulk comes out, there's a lot of people in an awful lot of trouble in Immortal Hulk Volume 1.
Well, and also, it's not just that that it's if something happens to Banner, it's if somebody else is injured as well. Like, there's a girl that gets killed and the Hulk is like, oh, that makes me mad. This man bad. Me going to get revenge on the man who shot up the place. Now, granted, Banner also was killed in that, but it's not just revenge against the death of Banner. It's also revenge against the innocents who are also killed in the situations or in the incidents.
And Devil Hulk speaks in full sentences. He's like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was heavier in the gas station. Isn't there some part of you wondering what you could have done? Devil Hulk freaks me out. He is absolutely terrifying. And honestly, the Hulk was designed to be a monster. This may be the first time that they have effectively turned the Hulk into a true monster.
Sure, and they've got a nosy reporter tagging along, trying to figure out what's going on. It's almost like they made the entire TV series into a comic book, but made it spookier or scarier. And I guess the question, Rodrigo, is this first volume spookier and scarier than what you expected?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I came in because people really like this series. I came in with like really high expectations, actually. I didn't mean to have very high expectations. It's just what I'd heard.
Yeah, the hype machine going.
Sorry about that.
And it's not so much that it doesn't live up to them. It's just that in my brain, I have sort of put together how I imagined this would go, and it doesn't. It works differently. And like, yes, the Hulk is very scary in this, but also he's not like, but he's like an anti-hero at worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like he's basically meting out divine punishment while Banner investigates what the deal is with the Green Door and runs into other bad people in the process, and then the Hulk deals with that. So when I heard about this, people were saying like, oh, this is like them actually treating the Hulk like it's a horror property. And I was like, oh, dang, that sounds cool. And I assumed that it wouldn't be tied to the, 616 Marvel Universe. And then when I started reading and I found out that it was, a lot of that mystique kind of went away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like, oh, well, like Iron Man lives in this world and Captain America lives in this world. And they have to like figure out a way to tie it to like previous things, yes, Hawkeye, shoots the Hulk in the head or whatever. So, I mean, I'm not saying this isn't good. I actually enjoyed it a lot, but I was like, at no point other than, the what is it called, the Devil Hulk?
Mm-hmm.
the Hulk has a really cool, scary design in this, and yeah, the personality they give him is very creepy. Again, he's like a good guy, so
Yeah.
it's not like he. When that guy comes out, that's like, it's like when Columbo says like one more thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, he figured it out. Now we're in the end game. We're gonna finish this. It's like when the Hulk comes out, it's like, okay, well, Banner's not in danger. Nobody else is really in danger other than like the bad people. So
I agree with you almost 100% in that, hyped as a big horror series, it's not, well, I will say the first probably 2 or 3 issues kind of feel like, ooh, this could be a really cool horror book. But then the minute that the Green Door stuff starts popping in, I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And I really thought that the Green Door stuff would come later in the series, and we were going to get like a dozen issues of revenge-driven story plot, Vault of Horror type comic tales. And by the time I got to the end of the third chapter in this volume, the first question in my mind was, why does this have to be a Hulk story? Why can't it be a, the Man-Thing story where he's coming out and saying, burn your badness out of you, or let your sins get burned out, and that ends up killing the people? Because really the things that happen in those first 3 issues with the revenge and the people doing bad things and how those people get taken down are very much a giant-sized Man-Thing type stuff. And so I kind of was like, does this really need to be a Hulk story? Now, then when the Green Door shows up, then you're like, okay, this probably does have to be a Hulk story, because now we're looking into potential childhood trauma. We're looking at what does this mean for all of the other radiated Hulk beings in this universe. And so now it becomes a little bit more complicated, where in the first 3 issues, or for sure the first 2 issues, this is pretty straightforward, almost done in one type stories, like a Hulk television show from the 1970s. So what were you going to say, Rodrigo?
I was going to say, it's interesting anytime they try to give not necessarily like a magical, but like a cosmological side to Marvel's, overwhelmingly scientific based characters, where it's like, oh, so now the Hulk has this additional dimension of the whatever's happening with the Green Door that potentially brings people back or messes with life and death or whatever. It's like, it's a little bit reminiscent of like Ezekiel showing up and being like, it doesn't matter that you got your powers from being bitten by a radioactive spider. If you wear the spider, like spider spirits are aware of you.
Yeah. Or almost maybe the same as over on DC side, where the Phantom Stranger shows up and you're like, ooh, who's this mysterious guy? We don't know. That's why he's the Phantom Stranger. And then years later, they're like, oh, no, this is Judas. And you're like, oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't know if it's quite like that.
Yeah, that's kind of maybe how it feels. But I really, do you see, Matthew, where I'm coming from, where at least in the first 2 for sure, and maybe in the third, this kind of could be a Man-Thing kind of story, or even a Ghost Rider type story?
I mean, I could definitely see it. I think coming into this, I had just followed Al Ewing from a run on, I want to say it was the Ultimates. And it was the run of Ultimates where Al was like, we're going to do this cool stuff where we're explaining how this is, the 8th iteration of the universe. And the Marvel universe goes through these, all of these crazy, wacky iterations. And I was like, oh yeah, this guy's good. He literally put Galactus on a super team, made it make sense, and made it work. So, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I feel like this is another example of a book that's ill-served by the breaking point.
Yeah, and I don't remember if this is 5 or
5 issues.
First 5 issues, yeah. I don't know what happens in issue 6, but here's the thing that I will say. This is a finite story. Al Ewing has a story that he wants to tell over the course of 50 issues, and presumably what starts in the Green Door here is wrapped up by the time you hit issue 50, and it doesn't wrap up in issue 30, and we've got 20 issues of filler. It's a finite story. So I understand the little bits that are already dropped here are things that are going to be played out over the course of, 5 years. And that there is a slow burn in this. I'm not sure that if I were somebody just walking down the bookshelf aisle at my local B. Dalton, and I saw the Immortal Hulk Volume 1, and I was like, ooh, this looks kind of cool. And I pick it up and I take it home and I read it. I'm not sure, by the time I got to the end of this, while I enjoyed it, I don't know if there's enough in this volume for me to go back to B. Dalton and say, I need Volume 2, please.
I would agree. And I feel like I'm a little disappointed because I remember when issue 1 came out. I'm pretty sure that I either reviewed or wanted to review it and got snaked by somebody for the site because issue 1 was a thunderbolt. Issue 1 came after a run of Hulk where Bruce Banner's mind had taken the forefront, and then we realized it wasn't Bruce at all. It was actually another Hulk personality coming to the forefront, and it was very bizarre. It was very difficult to put all of this together. And by the time it was over, they had done the bit where the Hulk, kind of like what they did when all of the Green Lanterns died and Kyle Rayner had the last ring, the Hulk went around and depowered almost all the other Gamma mutates. So basically, at the end of that run, there were 4 Gamma people left. There was She-Hulk, Hulk, there was Sasquatch, and Doc Samson.
Right.
And coming out of that run, I was just kind of annoyed because some of it was done by Mark Waid and some of it was done by not Mark Waid. And I was not happy with that. But when this issue hit, I just kind of went, oh, well, this was good. And that first issue was really, really striking. That's the issue with the gas station robbery.
Yeah.
Bruce getting shot in the face, waking up in the morgue. And it's like 15 or 20 pages before the Hulk actually shows up. And when he does show up, it is a monstrous, terrifying 12-foot tall Hulk with just piercing gaze of evil and a Frankenstein face. And you can literally see why they call him Devil Hulk. But then you get into issue 2. We have our point of view character, who, by the way, is named for Jack McGee from the Hulk TV show.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I see what you're doing. And then they don't. So
yeah. Well, they do. They just don't do it in the first 5 issues. And then we get to issue 3, and all of a sudden we have a Sasquatch
artist. Is it Sasquatch that shows up in that one? Is that the Sasquatch issue?
Sasquatch shows up in issue 4.
Oh, 4.
3
okay.
Is the one where that Jackie is listening to stories, and the stories
right, where
awesome.
Yeah. I actually kind of like that different. I actually like that story because you did get to see it as the point of view, and I liked how the art style changed with every point of view story that you were looking at.
Yeah, and I did like the fact that they used some minor green dude because they had depowered all of the others.
Yeah, Dr. Phosphorus.
But, it was not Dr. Phosphorus. Dr. Phosphorus
sure looked like him. DC would like words.
Shot. Do not look for Hotshot. You do not want to know about Hotshot. Hotshot is a terrible, terrible character. But you get to the end of this arc, and it's right in the middle of the Sasquatch plotline that this happens. We have the terrifying moment where, they've blown a hole through the Hulk, and oh no, he healed. And oh no, Sasquatch is showing up, and he's like, hi, I'm Sasquatch. And then you have just a strange break point. And I cannot remember if the Sasquatch stuff immediately picks up, but Sasquatch is part of the story for like the first 20, 25 issues.
Oh, okay. Because, he gets depowered by the end of this volume. And that is when the Hulk starts to learn about the Green Door, and he sees his father has been, possessing Sasquatch throughout the time that Sasquatch has been around.
Has been influencing Sasquatch.
Yeah. And so, it was at that point, and I don't know if that's the same point for you, Rodrigo, where you're like, oh, this is going to be one of those kind of stories. Not that that's bad, but it wasn't going in the direction that I thought it was going to be going.
I mean, once I was like, oh, this is not going the direction that I thought, and that was pretty early on, I was like, whatever, I'm on board for whatever's happening. The Hulk you can write the Hulk in such a way that it fits okay with superhero stuff, but the real strength of characters like the Hulk, Ghost Rider, to a certain extent, Namor, is that you can write very different stories with them, right?
Mhm.
Stories that
Yeah.
aren't just like da da da, oh no, Hydra's back kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So I enjoy them, just like I liked the Banner series.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy. I don't even remember if I liked the series as a whole and where it went and where it ended, but I liked that they took it and they changed up the themes and they changed up the point of view of, to make it more grounded. And I feel like that's something that this is doing as well, just in a sort of different way.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I'm on board. I just it like this comic is what it is. It's not like this like horror take on the Hulk, because you're right. As we start going, as the story starts to coalesce, as like an ongoing narrative starts to coalesce, like it starts to feel a little bit more and more like a superhero comic,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't necessarily bad, but
Yeah.
When,
if I remember correctly, Matthew, when the Hulk was still gray for those first 2 issues or whatever it was, did he only change in the full moon, or was it any time at night?
At night. The first 6 issues he was gray in issue 1. And they altered the color in issue 2 because the gray wasn't printing right. But the first 6 issues, so Incredible Hulk Volume 1, he changes at nightfall. And then when they bring him back, his changes are kind of all over the place. And eventually it falls into the familiar, you get mad and then you turn into the Hulk thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for at least the first year or 2, it was an at night thing. And then they realized, wait, he's only useful at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, but that's if you're telling spooky stories. That's when you want your spooky creature to come out and smash things and scare people and leave destruction for people to wake up in the morning and go, what happened? Somebody died and he was a bad man. Well, I guess he got justice. I kind of dig that. If it was a full moon kind of thing, I was going to say, I hope Marvel released each issue on the day that there was a full moon, like on the week of a full moon. That would have been great. And then each issue would have picked up a month after. But I still want to read the rest of this, right? Because it's finite. So it's not like you're going to be like stuck on reading 500 issues some point down the line. You're done in 50. And, the big ending is a big ending, and you'll want to get to that point. I'm not as hyped for volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that. I'm not hyped for volume 2. I like Al Ewing's writing. I thought that it was great. I like the story that's being told. I like how it's playing out. I think the art that Joe Bennett does in this series, except for the issue 3 with all the various artists that come in, I think the art there is also really, really good. I like seeing this shape come out of the darkness and smash things. Or, what really happens a lot is we only get glimpses of the Hulk coming out and doing his thing. And so that puts it in your mind that there is something out there. You don't know what it is. And if you're somebody that lives in the Marvel universe, you hear rumors that maybe the Hulk is back, but you don't know. And all you see is this destruction, and you've been told don't look into its eyes. I think that that's pretty kind of cool art and storytelling together. And so I think that this is a success, though if you bought into the hype, you're probably going to be let down
by this volume.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? You got to grab the reader on that first volume or that first issue, and the first issue definitely grabs you. But if I'm not sold on the volume 1, I'm not going to go back for volume 2. I will read volume 2. It's just not drop volume 1 and pick up volume 2 right away and then volume 3 and so on. And that's somewhat problematic for me as a reader. Sure. Final thoughts from you, Rodrigo.
Again, I think try to ignore the hype and take this comic for what it is. And I found it very enjoyable. I'm curious to see what happens next. I do want to pick up issue 2. Again, largely because what I'm interested in is what's the angle here that they're taking with the Hulk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what gets my brain interested is if this has different themes from your standard superhero fare, I want to see them explore, and I want to see them like take into their logical final point. So I am interested now that I've, read through it, got rid of the hype, thought about it some more.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely pick this up. I liked it.
They do mention Banner's father in this. Do they mention in this? I can't remember if it's in this volume. Do they mention that he was abusive to him?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, they mentioned this one.
Maybe this whole thing plays out again. Childhood trauma and abuse from parents. But again, we've also seen that in that was it the Ang Lee version of the Hulk where they're fighting in the clouds?
Yeah. But this is done well.
I mean, maybe we haven't got to the end of it yet. But Matthew, final thoughts from you.
Man, act like I haven't gotten to the end of it. Okay, so here's the deal. While I agree that this volume does not hold up to the hype, having read the run of Immortal Hulk, I can tell you that I think it is Rodrigo's jam. I think that the questions that we are raising here are answered with one major exception in some pretty interesting ways. And I think that this volume really suffers from being 5 issues, which honestly may have been a decision to keep the price down. I don't know. I don't remember what's in issue 6. I'd have to go back and check. But more importantly, I feel like the reading issue 1 on its own, that experience was, to me, far more impressive than reading this 5-issue collection. I'm still going to recommend it because A, it is really good. It goes weird places. And B, somebody is going to have to eventually figure out how to get Sasquatch and Doc Samson out of each other's bodies, because it's been 6 years and we cannot have Sasquatch and Doc Samson in each other's bodies any longer, you guys. It's just wrong.
Oh no, it's 6 years, Matthew. That's
what happens.
That's in concrete now. You can't change that.
I remember them. I remember when Wolverine finally got his adamantium back, and like somebody in like editorial was like, "Yeah, we kept trying to do it, and we just couldn't get to it. Like there was just like other stuff going on. We wanted to give him the adamantium back, we just couldn't get around to it."
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, we didn't have time.
Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. That is our episode this week. Thank you so much for downloading and listening. Again, if you found value in the show, we'd love for you to join us over on our Patreon page, where you can find even more fun, including the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show, where we talk about a certain anime. You can find that exclusively at patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Until next week on the show, we are looking at Something is Killing the Children, Volume 1. Why? Because we know that you love comics, and we do too, and we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was Hulk in green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I bag and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm Stark Raven, rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.